States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Thank you. Roll call.
Singh.
Here.
Shipman.
Here.
Reichner.
Here.
Henry.
Here.
Ister.
We are going to start tonight's meeting off with the CDBG competitive grant public hearing. The floor is yours.
Thank you. There's a couple sign-in sheets coming around, so they may cross each other, but if you've already signed in, just lay it down somewhere and I'll pick them up when we're done here tonight. We are here to have a competitive CDBG Community Development Block Grant public hearing in order to give the public a chance to comment on the city's application to the Department of Community and Economic Development for additional funding for the Chestnut Street project. What we're looking at doing is applying for $750,000 through the competitive Community Development Block Grant Program in order to undertake the utility portion of Phase 2 of Chestnut Street. So that would be 3rd to 10th Street. What we're looking at is a total project of $1,162,355, give or take. What the city has now is they've applied for funding for 2014 CDBG. $236,000 could be available. And then the competitive at $750,000 would leave a local funding of around $176,000 for the project. And those are estimates based on the engineer's estimate of cost. Again, we have to have the public hearing in order to give the public time to comment on the project. You know, I've been here lots of other times, so you're all familiar with what we're doing. Obviously, Chestnut Street is now closed, so that's my fault. And we'd like to get through get the whole thing done. DCED does have some competitive funding that they currently are looking to allocate to projects that can spend it quickly. So that's why we want to get these public hearings done, get the application in, and we're fairly certain that we have a good chance of being funded. I chose the utility portion specifically because it can be done this year, and we can do it through the whole year, and it'll be done, and then we can close out the competitive without relying on the rest of the project getting done in the meantime. So we would fund the utilities with this funding, and then as we go through looking at additional CDBG funding or PennDOT funding, or wherever we're looking at other funding for the actual street and streetscape, we would do that then probably next spring, so we'd be looking to do that. Your role as the community, again, tonight, I'll take any comments you might have or questions that you might have. And also, I've asked in the past, and I'll ask again, if you're willing to send a letter of support for the project, you could drop them off here at the city, you can send them to me at CEDACOG, however you'd like to handle that, but the application is much stronger if there's letters of support included from the community in the application. The schedule that we're looking at, tonight's our first public hearing. And 4 weeks from now, at the fourth meeting, or the second meeting, the fourth Monday in April, we'll have the final public hearing. After that, the mayor will sign everything and we'll get it submitted to DCED. I'm hoping that they will review it and award it in June so that we can get everything out for bid and done in this calendar year. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the project at this time?
You say you're hoping to get the money.
Yes, it is a competitive grant. The city does get an entitlement allocation from CDBG every year, but the CDBG also has a competitive program. But like I said, they do have funds they're looking to get out to projects that can use it right away. So I feel I've had a discussion with DCD about the project, and they wanted us to submit an application, so we're fairly hopeful it will be funded.
So what are you going to do?
Then we'll keep looking for money.
So will the project be held until the money is available, or will we go ahead?
It will not start until we know how we want to fund it. So
Okay.
Phase 2 probably will not start this year if we do not have this funding in place.
You can donate, Mr. Leon.
Yes, we will take donations. Anyone else?
The letters of support, can they come from anybody in the city, or do you have to live in that Chestnut Street?
No, they can come from anybody in the city, anybody and everybody. Most people do use Chestnut one way or the other,
Right.
so you don't have to live along there to submit the letters of support.
So anybody that lives in the city could write a letter of support.
Yes.
Okay.
You said local funding. What do you mean by that?
Well, that is not yet determined. Generally, it means 2015 CDBG money because they get the entitlement allocation every year. they could use that funding to cover that cost. The municipal authority may choose to cover some of the costs as they haven't yet in the project. Liquid fuels money, it's really a city decision. We haven't really discussed at this point where that funding will come from. But again, it's also based on an estimate, and there's a 15% or so contingency built in, so they might not even need the local funding. Just depends where the bids come in.
Are all these funds state?
Federal, community development is federal. Liquid fuels would be like state funding.
Is there any really state money being used since it is a state road through there?
It's not a state road, it's a city-owned street.
61 is not,
It's truck route 61.
okay.
Yeah. It's declared a truck route and recognized as a truck route, but it's not actually a state route. Yeah.
Is it based on reimbursement? Like, is the city gonna have to front load any money?
No, CDBG is not a reimbursement program.
Got it.
Yes.
Jamie, did we apply for that Appalachian, whatever it was that?
Yes, we did apply for Appalachian Regional Commission local access road funding. Right now, the last I knew when I talked to the woman at Cedar that specializes in that, we were still waiting for the businesses along that end of Chestnut Street to submit letters of support. I don't think she was in today. I was gonna follow up with her to ask where she was with that. I know she made contact with Pat Mack at the county, since he's works with those people as well, to see if he could get anywhere. My thought was I will go out and talk to them if she hasn't gotten anywhere. This week I'll go, I'll walk in the door and I'll pitch it. We'll see where we can get. Because my thought is if we can get this funding through the competitive to fund the utilities, and then we could get PennDOT funding for the streetscape part of it, the sidewalks, the curbs, the lights, the trees, maybe we could get that local access road funding for the actual street. I don't know. It kind of breaks it up because they don't all like playing together. They all like to do their own piece without somebody else's money getting mixed up with theirs. So that's one avenue we could look at. And then we wouldn't have to worry about the local funding for the paving of the street. But any other questions? Yes?
So is that gonna cover the entire project, or are you gonna need additional funding to finish the project?
This money that I'm talking about tonight is just for the utilities of that, so the water, sewer, and stormwater. Then we would be looking at additional funding after that, which we're talking with PennDOT right now about additional funding through their grant programs for the actual street and the sidewalks, curbs, that stuff.
What's the percentage that's already paid for? Maybe not percent, how much is already paid for?
For phase two,
How much grants or funds are dedicated already to this? That's
to this phase
what
two,
that's
the one I'm talking about now.
for both phases.
Phase one is completely covered.
Okay.
That's 100% covered, and it's under construction and moving right along. Phase two, there isn't anything necessarily banked except what's gonna be left over from phase one, which we won't know, of course, until all the change orders and everything are all, and the adds and deducts are all worked out at the end. So whatever we have left will be there for phase two, and then we're moving forward with new funding after that.
Jamie, we're actually ahead of the game. We weren't gonna put these bids out, or we weren't gonna look for them until actually the fall. And this
Yes.
bid came to us.
Right,
So we're actually ahead of the game, getting this in now.
this would put us ahead so that we're getting this work done this year instead of waiting until next year to start all of it.
And can I bring up, I wasn't able to attend the meeting last week on Thursday, we were at a PennDOT meeting. Not to get it confused with phase two, but 4th and Chestnut Street, the authorities, I met with them, and they're gonna come in and do 4th and Chestnut, they got a bunch of valves replaced. And I guess somebody had suggested that Court Street and from Raspberry Avenue to replumb some of the sewer that goes out to it's not in the combined system no more, because I'm gonna pave 4th Street, hopefully from Market down to Walnut, or from Chestnut to Walnut this year, so we're getting all this pre-work done, but it has nothing to do with phase two, so if you guys see that, don't get excited, it has nothing to do with phase two.
Your work doesn't.
Right, yeah, I don't want somebody, because thinking that well, they started it, and they don't have the money, this is totally something separate.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, a couple other things that I just have to say because it's a federal program and they require me to say it. I have to call your attention to on the agenda, at the bottom of the agenda, there's a Section 3 preference statement. Section 3 is specific to your HUD-funded grant programs. So that's basically a program that will make opportunities available for low-income persons or low-income business owners to be able to work on a CDBG funded project. The city's fair housing notice and anti-displacement plans are also attached for your information. And I have to mention, the environmental review that is required is done for this project. There were no effects noted for the project. If anybody has any comments to the fact that there'll be any environmental impacts, please feel free to let me know. But again, it is cleared and done and approved. The final thing for the public hearing is last year the city earned some program income through their housing revolving loan fund and through the sale of properties that were cleared using CDBG funds for demolition projects. And DCD requires that we let the public know and again give you a chance to comment. I think it's just over $12,000 that we have. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but the city will probably allocate that to the Chestnut Street project, the project that we have going on right now. So I give you the opportunity to comment on how we're going to use that program income, if you have any comments. Okay, that's all we needed to do for the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The public hearing is officially done. Any audience comment at this time on any agenda items? 116 South 10th Street, change vendor, Jim?
Yes, the contractor that was awarded the bid for demolition, the paperwork was messed up, so he withdrew. And the next bidder was Burgess. I think there was $300 difference. It was a close bid. So at this point in time, if there are no questions, I'll make a motion, we go to the other contractor and keep things rolling.
Second.
Is there something we have to do, Mr. Solicitor, about redacting the award last meeting for the one they awarded to?
No, I think the way we're proceeding tonight is the perfect way to
That's
go,
all
which
you
is
have to
a
do.
clear reference in the minutes to
Okay.
the withdrawn item and then the newly approved item, which I think we're about to approve.
Thank you.
So as long as it's papered in both meetings, we're good to go.
I'll make that formal motion if there's no questions.
Let me add to that, that the notice to proceed, that would allow me to sign the notice to proceed.
The notice to proceed that you have tonight is for the 3rd Street one.
Right.
I will get you the notice to proceed for the next one.
Well, I thought I had two different ones, I'm
Nope,
sorry.
they're both the same, one for you, one for him.
Forget
That's
that.
the one that's okay, Third Street's okay, 10th Street's the one with the
Okay.
Shipman,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
Eister, Singh.
Yes.
And I just have one other thing, if you don't mind. That's why I'm still
Go ahead.
standing here.
Where's yours?
Oh, just so you know, Mr. Burgess did turn in all his paperwork for the 3rd Street demo, so that is good to go. I put the DCD sign down in Jim's office that he needs to put up when he does the work, so 3rd Street is ready to go. I will get all the agreements and everything done for 10th Street and out to everybody, and we'll get moving forward with that. The other thing I have with me has to do with the competitive. I have 2 copies of the professional administrative services agreement between the city and CEDACOG, should you wish to approve them for us to move forward with this competitive. As always, it is contingent upon award, so there is no fees until it's awarded. We do the application, you know, on the basis of whether you get funded or not, we'll get paid for it. So the total amount for this agreement is $64,300, and it is all paid out of the administrative line of the CDBG competitive grant. Yes, it's the exact same agreement that we did for the first competitive, just for the second, and the numbers are probably a little different.
Jamie,
Yes.
does that include the sidewalk?
This right now is just the utility work. The sidewalks will come after that, next spring probably. Let's hope. Bug PennDOT about it. They need
Phase
the money.
1 though, the sidewalk is included.
Yeah, phase 1, the sidewalks are.
This is
done.
phase 2.
Pretty much everything's funded from Front Street to Third Street. Some of the stuff we're talking about is from 3rd Street all the way up to 10th Street. So all the sidewalks, if you're talking about sidewalks from Front to 3rd, they would all be covered.
I used to be a walker, and you walked down Bessie Street, you had to watch where you were going, and look down.
True.
And I'm trying very hard to get money through PennDOT and through their grant program, just for that reason, because all the kids in town walk to the high school. And I'm sure that most of them from the upper end walk down to there, and then, I suppose they're supposed to cross at 10th Street where the crossing guard is. Whether they do or not, I'm not gonna say. But, so yes, that's a big factor in trying to get this second phase funded through PennDOT's funding.
And to be honest with you, that's the only complaints I've really heard is the fact that we have to cut all these trees down. But as you know, from walking up and down the streets, the sidewalks are just horrendous in a lot of places. This is why you have to take care of that.
And we'll try to replace the trees with trees that are more appropriate for those tree lawns that won't dig up the sidewalks.
I think a gentleman at church told me he'd be 120 though, till they were all grown. So-
Well, yes, it will take a little while.
Dave, you want to make that?
Yes.
Good responsibility for the homeowner to take care of the sidewalks.
The Jim, what happened here, we acquired grants, Jamie acquired grants through the federal government, and different agencies through the state of Pennsylvania, which administrate federal money. And that's how this is playing out here. It's well, even here in the state of Pennsylvania, with this new gas tax we all pay, there's a lot more money becoming available. They all think they're gonna pick up 60,000 in liquid fuels.
I thought,
Right, in a 5-year phase.
oh, yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
not all, but sure.
That's how this is playing out. Money's becoming available for infrastructure. Okay.
But to answer your question, under normal circumstances, it is the property owner's responsibility. Just the fact that we're rebuilding the whole street, that's why these are being done once, but other than that, the property owner is responsible.
Okay.
So if you have 4 bad sidewalks in front of your house, the code office will still show up at your house and there's no funding there to take care of those. All right, so I have made a motion for a professional administrative services agreement. You have a second?
Second.
Yes.
Reichner? Henry? Eister? Persing?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Third step grievance, police schedule. What I have is a written response. I just want to touch base on the grievance, where we're at with the police schedule. We met like 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were going to come back last Monday and meet again. At that time, we were both looking for compromises. We had a compromise that the chief, and I want to thank the chief for working on it, has worked on with the goal of trying to see that they don't have to work 7, 8, 9 days in a row. We did not get a compromise back from the police as far as anything other than 12-hour schedules. What we want to do tonight is ask for your support to, I'll read this, the City Council of the City of Sunbury hereby makes the written response to the grievance filed by the Sunbury Police Officers Association. The City of Sunbury will continue to follow the directive of the mayor to inquire an 8-hour schedule for the Sunbury Police Department. This directive is accepted by City Council as appropriate under Article 13 of the Collective Bargaining Agreement. And what that means is, like I said, is we have bettered the schedule that we've been using, the chief's working on right now. So what we're going to turn over to the police department is, here's a much better 8-hour schedule, and then it's their choice if they want to go further with the grievance. The contract clearly states that the mayor has the authority to change the contract, so, you know, and we're not here to debate who's changing what, but the schedule, yeah, not the contract, the schedule. And, you know, the 12 hours, it's just, it wasn't working for, in my opinion. We're better off with the 8-hour schedule. So anyway, I'd like to have support for this written response and your motion. I'll make the motion. Get a second?
Second.
Henry?
No.
Eister?
Yes.
Persing?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes.
Reichner?
Yes.
PennDOT closure, Dale?
Yeah, the River Festival is August 14th and 15th, so I'll make a form of a motion that we notify PennDOT.
Second.
Friday and Saturday doing it?
Yeah.
Eister?
Yes.
Persing?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes.
Reichner?
Yes.
Henry?
Who?
Dave,
Go ahead.
what's the riverfront street closure, Jim, Terry? When we were at that PennDOT meeting last week, they're gonna be doing work on the Veterans Bridge and the first Packer Island Bridge this summer. They're gonna go out bids in August. So if we have any dates coming up that we close,
Yeah, I don't think I'm not there, that's started in 2016.
no, we were till the 15th, not at the meeting last
Are you
week.
talking about the stuff on the
Right.
bridge?
I don't know, but if they're going for bids in August,
He said you're gonna start it this week, or this year.
No,
You're not gonna get it
I
all
was just there on
finished.
Thursday, I don't think that's what I was gonna bring up tonight. They're not starting anything until 2016, the summer of 16.
Okay, well,
They want to give us enough ahead of time,
okay.
so they don't even have the project done yet.
Okay.
They know what they want to do.
Okay.
I think it's 2016 they're gonna start
Yeah, they
that.
met with, like, well, they met with you guys first.
No, they met with you guys first. In 2016, I was gonna bring this up, not to, sorry to interrupt you. They're gonna be doing work on the decking of the bridge, the ramps. If you guys noticed, there's the expansion joints at the beginning of the bridge on each side. A piece of that metal came up from the plow. They're gonna be cutting that back like 3 feet apiece. They're doing most of the work at night, and then they're gonna replace the decking. They're not replacing the decking, they're putting a new
Anti-skid.
anti-skid on top of the bridge, which most of the work will be done at night. There will be some daytime stuff they have to get done, but most of the work will be done at night. And they're also putting in they're not temporary, but there'll be like a barrier in the middle. It's not a solid wall. It's gonna be big tubes sticking up, more visibility for drivers. For them to expand that bridge, the way he explained it, it would cost about $20 million just to expand it. So this is their easier way of trying to make it a little bit more visible, safer. There's been about 22 crashes in the last, since 2010 on the bridge alone. So they thought, with that fatality, it really needs to be addressed. So this is what they're doing, but I don't believe they're starting that till next year.
Well, I'll find, yeah.
Yeah, one of the facts is the bridge is not big enough to put concrete down through the middle of it.
No.
So when you talk about it, you would literally have to make the bridge 10 feet.
They were
wide.
talking about,
So-
one of their plans was trying to, expand it on the sidewalk side and putting the walkway underneath the bridge. But again, it's a $20 million plus tab, and they thought that's not feasible.
Okay. Anything else on that? John, approve to pay invoices?
Okay, the city has received invoices of $128,486.79 for general fund. Out of that, $67,000 is our monthly health insurance premium. And $50,568.02 in liquid fuels. Make a motion that we pay our bill.
Second.
Persing?
Yes.
Shipman?
Yes.
Reichner?
Yes.
Henry? Eister?
The discussion on community garden. Zach Stoddard, is he here? Hello, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, come on up front.
I believe I have a packet that I hope you guys received. As some of you might be aware, with the community garden on 7th and Packer Street started a while ago through the Bucknell students. I helped out with that. Unfortunately, though, after a few years, there wasn't a whole lot of community involvement, and the garden kind of fell into disrepair a little bit and has been vacant for the past year. I've been speaking with a few people, some friends of mine, who are interested in getting the garden going again, but going a different path and using teaching students how to do gardening. Eric Attinger is the director of the 21st Century program at Shikwani, and Brett Morton is the director of the Food for Thought Educational Services program, and Christina Fangman is also helping us out. So I'm just going to let them talk to you a little bit about what their ideas are for the garden, and we're trying to get permission from the council to use the garden this summer.
First off, he mentioned my name. I'm Eric Attinger, in charge of after-school grants, federally funded. They're 21st Century Community Learning Centers grants. And what they are is out-of-school time money for me to use for out-of-school time. So it's after-school activities with the students. I help them with homework and do things like that. But I wanted to get some kind of service learning project, and when I found out they wanted to start a garden, I thought I might jump in. So anything that I'm involved in, my grant will cover the funding. So it wouldn't involve any city funding or anything. So any shovels my students would need, any seeds, any gloves, things like that, my budget can all cover that. It's federally funded and allowed for an appropriation. I would bring in, my plan right now is to bring in my students first. We already have Mr. Morton here with Food for Thought Educational Services doing nutrition education right now. And we thought this might be a good way to tie in hands-on education. So we want to kind of teach them how to garden first, the skills in how to garden, and then when we harvest, what those vegetables can do, what's in them, the nutrition aspect, and how you can actually glean your own fruit from your garden. You don't need to always go to the grocery store. So that's kind of where I'm at in this project.
Yeah, my name is Brett Morton, as Mr. Attinger said. I'm contracted through his program. Our main goal with this is to hopefully get the garden started up. You know, take an otherwise empty lot in the city, hopefully, you know, beautify it, make it a little bit nicer, you know, try to instill some pride in the neighborhood. And again, once we get the garden started up, bring the kids in. We're not looking to have like, you know, child labor or anything like that, obviously, but just have the kids in there getting, you know, hands-on, some hands-on experience. And learning, you know, what you can actually do with a small space, you know, such as that, what you can actually produce from an area like that. Right now, I guess just the main purpose of us coming before the council today is just to get permission to use the lot, and we're trying to just get any kind of resources or guidance that we can. Our main goal in the beginning to get started up is to possibly create some raised beds. We're right now in contact with a few donors trying to find some ways to get lumber. We're also going to be, you know, just trying to find whatever lumber that we can get just from the neighborhood. And also we need to figure out how we're going to water the gardens. We were wondering if there was a possible way we could get some kind of water hookup at the site. I believe before we talked with the neighbors, is that correct? You talked with the neighbors, is that correct?
Previously, we've used water access from the neighbor there, but not something we want to count on. If we can get a water access hooked up there, that'd be terrific. If not, we'll try and develop something with rain barrels. But ideally, it would be good to have a hookup there for the future.
There would probably be a water line from the old house. I'll check into that. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's, yeah, I said I would imagine there's a water put there. That's what we were just hoping we could, if there isn't, we were hoping we could get some kind of ideas or guidance possibly on where, you know, how we could go about that. So.
Well, there was a house there that was torn down a couple years back, so there clearly was a water hookup there. It's just a matter of, we'll check with the municipal authority to see where, if it's something, wouldn't take us much to get some water for it.
Okay, that'd be wonderful.
Previously, one of the problems there at the garden was the soil quality wasn't that great, so we're going to try, that's part of the reason for the raised beds, is bringing in topsoil. Putting in raised beds keeps it from washing away, and we don't have to till it or anything like that. We're hoping to get some of the supplies donated. That's why we're not asking for anything right now. We just need time to get out there and find out what materials we can get. But as anyone who knows gardening knows, it's March. We're coming really close to the time to get started, so a little bit of urgency on getting started here.
The sponsors, Food for Thought Education Services and 21st Century Community Learning Center. We know who SRI is. Are these, is this affiliated with like Shikellamy School District?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I do work for the Shikellamy School District, so all those the 21st Century grant is specifically for Shikellamy students, which is why I would be able to use the money for the shovels and gloves as long as my students were taking part. But yeah, it is, so it would all be Shikellamy students taking part in this. You're welcome.
Anybody have any questions?
I just want to thank them. This is awesome. We had our goal, I guess has it been 5 years, maybe that's been up 4 or 5 years, that we've just always run into a disaster for when it came down to maintenance and how we're going to take care of it. So the Bucknell people got us off and running, and we just couldn't follow through. So I think this is a fantastic idea, and I just want to thank you for being involved, and we're going to do whatever we can to help you out. Jim's going to tell you how we're going to do that since it's his department.
Eric, I'll get a hold of Zach regarding the water, and we'll see if we can find some topsoil and so forth.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you guys run off, I was just curious what type of seed you would be using, non-GMO or GMO?
We haven't discussed that specifically yet, because we're hoping to find whatever kind of donations that we can get. I mean, if we're looking at possibly spending a lot of money to get non-GMO seeds versus getting some donated, I don't think it would be a bad idea to get some donated and possibly teach the kids at least the difference between genetically modified organisms and non-genetically modified organisms. Again, this is all just, we're still in the planning phases right now. I mean, we have a good solid idea set down, but there's a lot of kinks to work out still, and that's why we wanted to make sure we had permission to use the plot first and have a water source before we actually get into some of the specific details.
I was just trying to maybe look to see what your thoughts were on the GMO versus.
I mean, as of right now, there's very little data stating that they're unsafe. I understand that a lot of people aren't very comfortable with the idea. I personally try to stay away from them whenever I possibly can.
Right.
But granted, again,
internationally, they don't accept them.
I'm sorry?
Internationally, they don't accept them.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
And it seems like the United States is always, you know, the last ones to get it, if you will.
Yeah.
The problem with trying to do a non-GMO garden is that anyone around you who is using GMO seeds, it ends up affecting your garden. So
Right.
for us to go and spend all the money to get non-GMO seeds that are going to end up with GMO hybrids and pollination.
But that's also part of the education.
Exactly, yeah. So we're going to use it as a teaching point.
And we can do stuff with non-chemical, like pest control, things like that, building that into the educational program. Like being exposed to those sort of things is half the battle. So
Correct.
those are all things that we'll have in mind and try to get others thinking about that as well.
We'll be updating, there's a Facebook page that's kind of been down for a while, but we will be updating it so you can get on there and kind of ask questions or figure out what we're doing from there.
Is there like a club at the school, or is it just everybody's invited? Or?
Well, right now, what we're gonna, actually, I'm thinking about, once we get this approved and get hands-on, I'm actually gonna create a specific gardening club, so we're not just throwing kids in there who are gonna cause more disturbances than anything. So we're gonna look at the kids that are really focused and create some sort of club that will be tending the garden regularly in regular lessons.
It's going to be a lot easier as far as supplies go as well. We'll know exactly how many shovels, how many pairs of gloves, how many of each supplies that we're going to need, as opposed to just one day we have 20 kids, one day we have 5 kids, or whatever. You know, we're going to try to have the same students coming weekly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's start with that.
Would you put the minutes that we support?
A certificate of insurance from Sunbury.
Anybody against it? We'll just put it in the minutes that we support it. And we're gonna work with it. That's great. Citywide cleanup, Rick?
We were informed in a letter that they expect that the citywide cleanup this year is going to be a minimum of $10,000. And they asked if we would be able to go with half of it. We have no money. We looked at some stuff. I met with Mr. McBrien earlier today, and we discussed some things about it, like maybe shortening the time span and putting other restrictions on it. I'd like to see it happen because it's something for the community, but the 5,000, 6,000 revision there would be moved from my budget. So I have no money for it.
Sean?
Well, I don't know what to say. Budget is so tight that, you know, we're laying people off and so on. Is there some way that we can charge a small fee or something to help offset?
I can check, John, I can check with the SMA and see what they think. You know, like, we ran it for over a couple week period, couple days a week, maybe shortening that span.
Yeah, maybe one weekend, maybe one Friday and Saturday or something.
But I guess the best thing I can do right now is to sit down with Tom and SMA and try to come up with some kind of a thing. I think, you know, it benefits the community, and I'd like to see it happen, but again.
I think one of the things that we need to try to do is make sure that what we're receiving is actually coming from the city.
And that's one thing we as the city have some control over. I think they asked for a driver's license or something like that, or some kind of identification, but that could be, that identification could be given there, but it still could be coming from outside the city. We don't have any real control over that.
And then also, John, I know in the past, they were bringing demolition material